How's it going, guys? Will Robinson here from Robinson's Auto, toolsandtime.com. Welcome back. Today in the shop I'm going to be working on my 1200 Sportster. One of the common problems they have with these, even though this motor's been worked, I still have the stock carburetor on it. It's just been tweaked. However, this is a common issue, and it'll relate to many of the Harleys, is that on these CV carburetors they use a plastic gas inlet for the carburetor, for the fuel. And what happens is they dry out, and over the years with vibrations and stuff, they get hairline cracks in it and they start leaking gas. So we're going to take a look at it, see what we can do to repair it. I already been through, let's put another clamp around a plastic piece. It doesn't work. Let's try to glue it. Let's try to put some sealant around it. Don't bother, guys. They sell a replacement. It's a genuine Harley part, and I'll leave the part number in the description. However, it's pretty much a new elbow that presses into the aluminum housing of the carburetor, but we're going to have to extract the original fuel inlet. So I'm going to demonstrate for you how to do it. Alright, let's go on and see what we got. Now, don't mind it, I didn't polish this thing up this season yet. We just got it out. Notice I had a little gas leak when I took it for its first ride. However, many of you guys know I made a short video clip on when I chopped this bike, when I built this motor and whatnot. But that's on there. I'll leave a link in the description of some of the, it's more of a slideshow. I wish I did video, but that was before I was doing the demonstrations for you guys. However, I already removed the air cleaner. It's a pretty straightforward task. You got, on the stock air cleaners, you got 2 screws, remove the cover, you got your breather tubes, some bolts around the perimeter. Once you get the air cleaner off, then it was pretty evident on where my gas leak was coming from. I already have this hose clamp off. However, this plastic elbow for your fuel inlet, it gets dried out and cracked. Hopefully you can see that there. But now it's a little more severe than it was when I first found it. But once I noticed the crack, I just moved it a little bit, and it just cracked the rest of the way when I was trying to remove the hose. And like I mentioned before, I wouldn't try epoxy in this or nothing. You're just going to make a mess. So what you're going to want to do is remove this gas line. It's pretty straightforward. Once you pop your carburetor out, I'm just going to pop that apart. As you can see, I already broke it in half. But you have that brass insert. We're going to have to extract that out of the carburetor. But as many of you may know, if you worked on carburetors before, this goes right into the needle and seat for your float. So you don't want to go doing too much here and getting debris, and next thing you know you have a sticky needle and seat and you're overflowing out the overflow, or you're just not getting any gas. So we're going to actually take the carburetor off and bring it over to the bench and extract that. So once you get your fuel line removed, pretty much on these they have a grommet in the back. I don't know if you can see it back there, but it just pretty much slides in. I'll actually pop it off for you so you can see. As you can see there, and it's a pretty nice tight seal. But you're going to have a vacuum hose that runs up. Now this one's going to have a lot more space than yours because it's been chopped and raised up a few inches, and so yours is going to be a lot more tighter in this area. But for demonstrations, this makes it nice. Okay, you don't have to pop the carburetor out just yet. I usually remove the gas line, then I'll go on the other side and remove the choke from its bracket. It's just a nut, and then on the other side there's another lock nut that retains it in a bracket. This is the choke. Once I loosened up and removed that lock nut, I just simply pulled it out of its bracket, and that'll allow us to pull it across and leave it on the carburetor. And of course, guys, before you get started, turn the gas off on the Pepcot. We're going to take it. Oh, wow. I'm going to take and remove these 2 Phillips head screws. I have to get a bigger Phillips head for that one. But as you see, guys, that Phillips head screw is wanting to round off on me. So a little trick. So I noticed looks terrible. But just use it to break it loose. That'll prevent you from stripping that out too far. Once you get them two removed, this will pop down and give you enough slack to remove each cable. I know it's probably hard to see, but if you turn the butterfly a little bit, you can see there's a notch for that cable to slip out of there. Hopefully you can see that. And once you got that disconnected, you're going to want to fish your choke out. And there's your carburetor. Let's take it over to the bench. Now that I had the carburetor off the motorcycle, what I'm going to do is remove this bowl. Now on this one, I turned the gas off and I ran it until it was out of fuel, until the motor shut off. And this bowl should be pretty much empty. However, if you don't want to do that, still you got to turn the fuel off prior to removing the gas line. Even though you might have a little leak, it could turn into a pretty massive leak if you forget to do that. But you could take and loosen this regular screw, and what that will do is open up this port and let the gas drain out of this. So what we're going to do now is see if there's a little bit in there. So I'm going to take and loosen that up. As you can see, I got a little bit of gas remaining in the carburetor, so I might as well drain that out. So it just goes to show you, even though I ran it until it shut off, there's still a little bit remaining. That's good enough. Okay, now what I'm going to do is take and remove these 4 retaining bolts. I believe on this one, this rod for the accelerator pump will pull out and separate it from atmosphere from this diaphragm from the accelerator pump. So let's see. Start by breaking them all loose. Every once in a while you get one of these that want to round off. Get yourself a pair of vice grips and just lock it on the head and give it a quick pop until it breaks loose, and then remove the screw. That way you prevent stripping it out too far. You can see all the retaining screws are the same, and they have a lock washer. Okay. Yeah, as you see, that rod comes out of that accelerator pump boot. Okay, now that we had the bolt removed from the carburetor, as you can see, it exposes the internals. We're going to take and remove the float. You just simply take a pick or something and push the pin out just like so. I'm going to get a clean rag, a paper towel, to lay some of this stuff on, off to the side. Once the pin's removed, take and lift up on the float, and as you can see, the needle comes out and the seat's remaining in there. Right about now you guys are probably asking, why go through all the hassle of removing the carburetor from the motorcycle, dismantling it, removing the float and the needle to remove this inlet? Well, if you look at this, guys, this is the replacement. And you can see how far it pushes in that aluminum housing. It's actually a press fit. Now you can take and put a pair of vice grips on it, and sometimes you can manage to pull that out and get the new one in without messing the housing up too much. But the way I found to be the best, and I actually found this data online many years ago, was to take a 1/4 tap and run it down into this brass insert, and that'll allow you to put a 1/4 bolt in it. And then I'll show you the next step after we get it tapped out. But in the process of tapping it, this float from the gas inlet comes in to the seat for the needle. So this port is actually going right here. So if I get any debris in here, I want to be able to back flush it out and clean it. I don't want to take any chances of having any carburetor issues later on down the road. So okay, with that being said, let's take and run a 1/4 tap in that fitting. You want to try to keep it as straight as possible. Maybe for demonstrations I'm holding it like this, but I usually hold it at a different angle where the pieces fall out. Just like so. I'm going to run that in quite a ways. Now we could put some tapping fluid on it, but since it's brass, it really doesn't take much, guys. Turn it backwards every now and then to get the debris to fall out. So we're going to leave it there. I want to tap it in pretty far, but I don't want to go too far. As you can see, all the debris on the bench, some of that's going to end up in the carburetor, and we're going to want to back flush that out. I got that tapped in pretty far. So now for the next step. For this next part of the demonstration, we want to find something that'll fit just over top of this brass insert, but still hit the ledge of this aluminum housing of the carburetor. So what I found readily available in the shop was this 1/4 inch NPT. It's a National Pipe Thread coupling. So if you go to any hardware store, it's just a coupling that couplings 2 1/4 inch pipes together. And pretty much just fits over and still hits that ledge. And now that we have that tapped out for a 1/4 inch bolt, I found this 1/4 inch cap screw that was long enough to install a nut and plus get it started, along with a flat washer, which I have here somewhere. Now you can use a regular bolt and just slowly pull it out, but you don't want to push it in too far, so this is probably the best technique. So we're going to want to get this started in there and ran down a little ways, fairly straight. That brass makes some funny noises. It's a tight fit, but that should be far enough anyhow. And then I'm going to take and hold this cap screw, but if you're using a bolt, an all threaded bolt, this will work the same way, or a cap screw. Pretty much we don't want to take and screw this bolt down any further, or whatever you're using, because then you could take a chance of pushing it down into the aluminum housing. So we know we're in deep enough, we're just going to take and run this nut down, and what that's going to do, as that nut tightens down, it's going to pull that brass piece out of the carburetor, hopefully. Yeah, something's moving. Either it's pulling the bolt out of the brass, or the brass is pulling out of the carburetor. And I think we got it. And there it is. There's your brass insert. As you see, that worked real well. Now what we're left with is some debris inside this passage from the fuel inlet to your seat, where your needle resides for your float. So we're going to take and back flush that with some carb cleaner, and I'm going to flush this out real good, maybe shoot some down the main jets and whatnot, and then we'll come back and we'll install the new elbow. To reinstall this, I'm going to be using my vise. However, you could use, say, a seat clamp. You could actually tap it in and you'll probably be just fine. However, I want to press it in nice and square. So on these carburetors, as you see on this side, it's pretty much a square shot. So I'm going to put a block of wood on this side of the carburetor and clamp it in the vise, and this will act like a press and push that brass piece in. You want to make sure, however you press this in, it's lining up to where your fuel line was. And I know mine ran right around where this choke comes out and this plug's installed. So we're going to take and press it in just like so. I'm just going to take my block of wood and get it started in there straight. And as you can see, we got it started. It's pretty much square. I want to press it in the rest of the way with the vise. I'm just run her in. Take it easy, go nice and slow. You don't want to kill it. Make sure you got somewhat of the correct angle on there. Just going nice and easy. A little bit at a time. And this brass will seal itself. I'm just going to take and press it in until the bottom's out. That was just this block of wood. Okay, we're good. Hopefully you guys can see that. I'm in line right where I need to be. We're all pressed in. So I'm going to take and back flush this one more time prior to reinstalling the float, needle and float. Okay, now that I got it all back flushed out, everything's pressed in place, we're all back together. I also blew it out with some compressed air to make sure everything was good. Now we can take and reinstall the needle, float, and the pin. As you can see, I'm not going to take it apart. I'm not going to mess with the float height. I'm just going to simply install the needle back into the seat, like so. Take this pin, install it like so. Gonna make sure our linkage is back in for the accelerator pump. I got this all sprayed out as well, so everything's good. And if you take notice, this tube here goes down through for the accelerator pump. We're going to get the linkage started. Once you get that started in, it just pretty much goes straight down. Make sure your gasset's good on your bowl. I'll take and reinstall the retaining screws. Pretty straightforward job, guys. I just wanted to throw this up there because I know it's a common issue with these carburetors, and I struggled with it a couple years ago with a customer's bike where I tried repairing the old inlet brass piece. I actually pulled it out, tapped out the carburetor, put in a tapped NPT fitting, and I had nothing but problems with it. Then I found it through some research that you could buy these replacement press-in fittings, and that's the way to go. So if you just follow that technique on pulling the old one out, I find it to be pretty successful. You know, it's a guaranteed repair. You don't have to worry about whatever kind of sealant you're using failing. You want to make these nice and tight. You don't want to overkill them. You can use a little bit of Loctite. These lock washers hold up pretty good. Okay, and that's pretty much it. Woo! Okay, and that's about all there is to it as far as installing the new inlet nipple. I just said nipple, didn't I? So you just want to make sure you got everything tight. Like I said, you can use a little Loctite to be a little more proactive. However, I had pretty good luck with just the lock washers. You know, the accelerator pump linkage is in there. There might be some residual gas in that accelerator pump, as you've seen it squirt in there. But let's take and reinstall it on the bike and see how she holds up. Take and fish your choke over right away. Install one side first, pull it tight, slide this over, put it in like so. Get both sides in. You see there's a spot on the carburetor. That piece goes over right there. Once you got that in, so you can turn it in place like so. One retainer. Two retainers. Up like so. Just check it out with your throttle. Feels good. Make sure this back grommet is on correctly, like so. Push back. I want to make sure the choke's in the correct location before I go any further. Just so you see, this lined up perfect over here. Now the nut I'm referring to that you got to loosen is this one in the back. This front one here just adjusts your tension on your choke. See, if I loosen that up, it pushes right in real easy. And when I pull it out, it'll actually, when it's running, it'll actually slide right back in. If you tighten this up, it'll actually keep some resistance on it, so while it's running, the choke will stay out. I found it to be 11/16 on this one, so it lined up perfect. I got it all tightened up. So let's jump back over to the other side. I take a little petroleum jelly Vaseline on my finger and I just smear it around there. Helps this carburetor slide in a little bit easier. Won't fight you as much. And we'll just simply seat it in there like so. I just take and I test everything one more time before going any further. I take and hook this vacuum hose up to the vacuum advance port, just like so. I take and install the fuel line. As you can see, that position worked out perfect. Okay, make sure that's nice and tight. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take and turn the fuel on right now, just to make sure everything looks good. Just to show you that we got some gas in there. Gas is definitely on. I think we got it fixed, guys. I'm going to take and throw the air cleaner back on it. We'll fire this baby up. Well, there you have it, guys. I think it's a fix. Needs a good bath, that's for sure. Still looking pretty good though. I had to put the passenger seat on it. My kid's at that age where he loves going for rides. So, still long and lean, every young man's dream. Get it to turn some heads in town. Let's start it up.